Let's jump into some college basketball, though, Brett. We don't have a ton of lines on Monday night into Tuesday. There's a fair amount of interesting games on Tuesday, but Brett, really the story is what came out on Monday morning. Um, Miami Hurricanes versus UNC. That was a game that was supposed to be played on Monday, 2 hours before tip-off. That got postponed in part due to some student reporting from Chapel Hill.
Yeah, pretty cool. Good for the Daily Tar Heel getting some national publicity here. They broke a story, Higgins. Basically, two players were seen partying without masks, and Miami's coaches or athletic director Higgins, brought it up to UNC, and they both teams decided they weren't comfortable with the game going on tonight, and or on Monday night. Excuse me, we were recording on Monday, so I apologize, but it's definitely an interesting story to watch because this was not canceled because of positive tests. This was simply canceled because players were seen maskless around other people that are not in the quote unquote bubble of these student athletes.
Breaking protocol, breaking procedure is a lot of what it is. We'll see with contact tracing if anything ends up coming from it. Those are probably a few days down the line. That video is reportedly from Saturday night of the players celebrating after their big win over Duke. Duke playing a big game on Tuesday night against Notre Dame. Neither of us are going to be on that game, but Miami UNC, that's not the only postponement news that we got either. Baylor announced they're postponing 3 of their games, including 2 games against West Virginia. They already had 2 games postponed earlier this week, so that's going to make 5 straight for the Baylor Bears, who are an undefeated team, one of the top ranked teams in the nation, but they have had their own struggles to deal with as well.
Yeah, I still think we'll see them in the Final Four, Higgins. I'd start reserving some hotel rooms if I was the Baylor Bears.
I agree. That's a very, very strong team, top to bottom. Let's get into some of our games for Tuesday night, though, Brett. I mentioned that Notre Dame and Duke, they're playing. I don't necessarily have a read on that game, though, partly because of how that UNC Duke game went. That's going to have me stay away. The ACC has just been weird in general. I do like an SEC game, though. Alabama has been fantastic for me. Since Alabama won the national championship, I've bet on them a few times, and the Crimson Tide has taken their momentum from the football field right onto the basketball court. They're having a great season at 15-5, and they're 12-7 against the spread. Facing a South Carolina team that struggled to stay on the court, they're 5-7 overall this season, 3-5 in conference, and they're 5-7 against the spread as well. So the games that they win, they win. The games that they lose, they lose. Alabama only -7.5 in this game. I understand they're on the road, but 7.5 point underdogs from a Crimson Tide team that's having a really good season against a South Carolina team that hasn't been able to get a rhythm going because of these postponed games and rescheduled games and everything. Give me Bama in this one. Give me Bama on the spread -7.5.
Yeah, I think I would lean that way as well, Higgins. It feels like some of these Bama players are finally living up to that potential that people saw in them over the last few years. John Petty's really playing well. Herb Jones. I'm trying to think. Quinterly is the other one I was trying to think of. So they've got guys that are really, playing up to their level and their potential, which is helped them this season. And Carolina's struggled. This has not been Frank Martin's best team. Lawson's still a great player, but it's really tough to win when you've only got one guy as good as the SEC is this year.
And Bama, with as good as the SEC is, Bama's 10-1 in conference play, has a 3-game lead in the conference standings. I don't expect a South Carolina team that, like I said, at 3-5 in the SEC, hasn't posed much of a threat to a lot of these teams. So Crimson Tide's where I'm going to go with that one. Some other games to note, I mentioned the Notre Dame Duke game. Ball State versus Central Michigan, that was another line that we had out as of Monday night. Ball State's a 4.5 point favorite. VCU Dayton, Another interesting game between two mid-major programs that we've seen both of those appear in the March Madness dance.
Yeah, we have definitely seen those teams appear recently. Unfortunately, Higgins, this is not the year either team will be making an appearance. Just not their years, but that's okay. The A10's still great. Lots of great basketball being played. St. Louis is very good. Richmond isn't having the year they expected, but still a solid team. So there's still good basketball being played in that conference. Just probably not the multiple bid league that we've seen in years past or really recently.
Yeah, it's a bit of a down year for them, but when you've been so good for so long as a mid-major, you're going to end up having some of these up and down years as some of your guys start leaving earlier for the NBA draft, like what we saw with Obi Toppin, necessarily not waiting the full 4 years like you are so used to seeing with some of these mid-major programs where they'll build a very strong senior class, make a run, and then it's a rebuild again. Not used to seeing the quick turnover, one and dones necessarily, but the A10 has become a very strong conference in its own right. So just a down year for some of the bigger names, but that gives an opportunity for some of these other teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Still a fun conference. Lots of good basketball being played. Like, definitely worth watching VCU Dayton.
Absolutely. That line is -1.5, by the way, in favor of VCU.